Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
Though many federal employees have been through shutdowns in the past, a significant majority say things are very different this time around. About 70% of respondents to a recent Federal News Network survey say the current shutdown feels much less certain than usual. Some survey takers also say the Trump administration's recent actions have only built on the challenges feds have faced this year. Here with more on the survey results is Federal News Network's Drew Friedman. Drew, thanks for joining me.
Very nice to be with you as always.
Well, tell us about this survey. What did people have to say about why this shutdown feels different?
So this won't come as much of a surprise to a lot of our audience. I think there are two key reasons that kept popping up over and over again in the survey responses on why this shutdown feels so different and so much less certain than normal. One of those is the new threat of reductions in force that have come from the Trump administration, and that in relation or in the context of the shutdown. And then the other reason was the lack of guarantee on back pay for furloughed employees. That's putting a lot of extra stress, extra concern on a lot of federal workers who right now are going without pay. Many respondents, talked about, how this is the first shutdown where they feel like they are truly threatened by the administration, used words like unpredictable, stressful, unstable. And like you mentioned, 70% of respondents say that this shutdown in particular was different from anything that they've experienced in the past for those who have been through a shutdown before. So, long story short, it is quite different now.
We might have crossed a line somewhere when we get to talk about usual shutdowns and unusual shutdowns. But folks are now starting to feel an impact in their personal and their financial lives. What did survey respondents tell you there?
That's right. So just to put into a little bit of context, we are at the point where about 1.4 million federal employees have already missed their first full paychecks, and the next missed paycheck could come as soon as the end of this week. The financial strains are hitting federal employees differently, and it really just depends on your individual financial situation. What we found in the survey responses was that about 30% say they will feel a major impact on finances. 36% said there would be somewhat of an impact. So it's a little bit mixed on how much this is going to affect people individually. But I think what was a really interesting finding in this part of the survey was that it really depends on the length of the shutdown. So a lot of people talked about, if the longer the shutdown continues, the more concerned they'll be about their financial situation. And then that combined with the Office of Management and Budget's calling into question the 2019 law that's supposed to ensure back pay. Again, that's adding a lot of financial stress to people who think, maybe I could float through the shutdown or get through the shutdown with my current financial situation, but that only rests on them getting that guarantee of back pay. So if that ends up not happening, a lot of people are concerned about how that could affect them long term as well.
And Congress has been pretty clear about saying they intend to make that back pay provision, correct?
That's right. It seems that if you look at past shutdowns, every time federal employees have been given back pay, and whether you're furloughed or accepted, it seems like that will most likely be the case. And that is what the 2019 law says, is that both groups of employees are guaranteed back pay. So, it's unclear how that exactly is going to play out in the timeline of that, but it seems like the intent, at least from most lawmakers, would be to provide back pay in that sense.
The survey also asked how folks believe the shutdown will affect their workplaces. What did you hear there?
So one common concern about how this would impact the workplace is really just morale. One of the survey questions asked about how the shutdown is impacting morale in the workplace, and more than 70% say that it has gotten worse as a result of the shutdown. But on top of just the feeling or the general situation in the workplace, employees also talked about the effects of the shutdown on their actual work. So 45% of survey respondents say it's going to have a major impact, and about 35% of respondents say there would be somewhat of an impact. But again, similar to the trend in financial concerns for federal employees, a lot said that it really depends on the length of the shutdown. So they expect the longer the shutdown goes on, the bigger workloads that will be piling up, the bigger backlogs there will be, and the more they'll have to work through once the shutdown ends. Or several respondents also talked about how the delays and changes throughout the year due to the Trump administration really overhauling the federal workforce is compounding the effects of the shutdown. So while there have been some changes with like the hiring freeze, for example, and other ways that the Trump administration has reduced the federal workforce, that in combination with not being able to do work is making employees feel like once they get back, things will be much worse than they possibly could have been otherwise.
Drew, you did this survey at the beginning of October, so there were a lot of things that happened in September that led into this on top of the shutdown. Refresh us on what respondents experienced in the days leading up to the shutdown in late September.
So if we think back to those last few days of the month of September, at the time there was a lack of clarity from a lot of agencies on their preparations for the shutdown. Employees who filled out the survey talked about how typically during past shutdowns, they'll see things at least several days or more in advance in terms of what agencies are planning for their contingency plans. So that tells you how many employees are going to be furloughed, how many are expected to continue working. A lot of respondents say that their agencies gave either conflicting information, delayed information, or just no information at all. So in terms of percentages, the most common answer was that people believed their agencies were somewhat prepared. That was about 35% of the respondents. About 1/3 of respondents say their agency was not at all prepared. So there's quite a big mix there. But the bottom line here is that a lot of federal employees again felt like it was a different preparation leading up to the shutdown.
And looking forward, what did they say about the long-term impacts of this shutdown? What are they expecting?
A lot of people in the context of the long-term impacts really were raising concerns about the reductions in force that the Trump administration is looking to conduct. They say that will cause additional stress, additional apprehension for a lot of federal employees. Many spoke of how their teams are already short-staffed with the reductions that have already taken place this year. Others worried about how the reductions or further layoffs could potentially affect agency mission overall. And then on top of the reductions in force as well, again, a lot of people were worried about the impact of the back pay and the potential loss of that. It is something that is just creating a lot of uncertainty for the long term with employees.
Drew, thanks for sharing the results of the survey with us.
Thank you, Terry.
That's Federal News Network's Drew Friedman, and you can find her story at federalnewsnetwork.com.